Hello, I'm sarahbyoga and welcome to your yoga class with me today. This is going to be a yin yoga class with 1 minute holds. I've been asked by quite a few of my patrons to teach this class, so I listen to those guys, and I have my timer. This is a 2-minute timer, so when it's about halfway through, if you see it, although I want you just to stay focused on what you're doing, don't look at the screen too much. You are going to need a few props because it's yin, a blanket or a towel, maybe 2. I've got 2 blocks, 1 is fine, and if you happen to have a bolster, go and get that, or a couple of firm sofa cushions will be useful. So 1 minute holds is actually quite brief for yin. This is going to be quite a brief practice, one that I hope that you're going to keep on coming back to. I'm going to be talking much less as well, so if you want to put some music on in the background, that's quite a nice idea, or just be with quiet and stillness. We've got Suki here settling down for a sleep. I hope that she stays nice and still for you guys as you now come into your first pose. Let's just get straight into it. So I want you to come into downward facing dog, which obviously isn't yin, but it's a good way to set this pose up. Place your hands. We're going to come into sleeping swan, which is called pigeon prep in Hatha, but has a very different feel to pigeon prep. Push your hands forward and just take a bit of a stretch back as you squeeze your legs. Then bring your right kneecap to the floor behind your right wrist, in contact with your right wrist. And bring your back knee down and your back toenails on the floor. Now, I hope your props are nearby. If they're not, pull them in. So for those of you that are maybe newer to yoga or just a little tighter, you can put a block and maybe 2 blocks and perhaps a blanket underneath your right buttock, your right sitting bone, so that it has some proppage. If you don't need that, then lower the props. It's quite good to have a soft prop so that you have some yield. So if you're going to let anything go, then just fold up the blanket a couple of times. Do it nicely. 1 minute on the right side. You can rest your forehead on your fists or on your block or on another blanket. Come into this pose for a lovely deep opening in the outer hip. You'll find this all around the right buttock. Well, you see where you find it. Compression will be going on as well. Feel free to move your left foot a little further out to the left so that you feel like you're evenly weighted on the left and the right sides of your body. And then in the philosophy of yin, try and soften and relax as much of your body as you can, including your abdominal muscles, both legs, arms, head, everything. Be still and be soft, and I'll be quiet here as promised. You're about halfway through on this first side. And let your breathing be normal and light and natural. Try and breathe in and out through your nose. Okay, let's come to the other side via a briefly held downward facing dog. Lift your head, place your hands, tuck your back toes under, pick up your right leg, step back. Move the props over to the other side, so you just use one of your hands to move them over, and then bring that hand back down to the floor and stay in down dog for another 1 or 2 breaths. Squeeze your legs, then come to the second side, your left knee behind your left wrist. Prop up underneath the left buttock, more or less the same height as you did before. Having said that, if you have an injury or any particular reason for less range of motion in the left hip, the left knee, the left ankle, then prop up. If you stacked your fists before, stack the other fist on top. This time, 1 minute starts now. Always remember that when you're doing yin yoga, if something feels painful, come out of the pose. A good alternative for this is coming into eye of the needle, lying on your back. We're trying to create pulling and tugging. Some discomfort, yes, but not too much. You don't want to do any damage. You want to feel like you're lengthening and deepening tissues around the hip joint, the outer knee, the ankle, in a therapeutic, in a good way. And also the rest of your body is being encouraged by your mind to be relaxed, not glitching in and tightening up in reaction to any discomfort you're feeling in the pose. Even the fists in your hands, you want to try and encourage them to only be as fisty as needed, just enough to hold the shape, to hold your head, but not squeezed tight in a way that feels uncomfortable. That's 1 minute. So again, a relatively short hold. Raise your head. Come back to downward facing dog. And again, move your props, this time completely off your mat. Then look at your right hand and step it a little closer to the left hand so that you can now step your right foot to the outside of your right hand. If you can't do one big step forward, that's fine. Just use your right hand to bring that right leg forward and bring your left knee down. You can choose whether you want to tuck your back toes under or have the foot pointed. Do whatever you feel your body needs. Then from here, reach forward and get a block or a blanket. And you can keep your right hand or your left hand on the block. It's there to help you. Or you can bring your elbow, your left elbow, onto the block so that you come down a little bit, increasing the depth and the tugging of the pose. I'm counting 1 minute from now. If you know this, you're familiar with this, and you like to turn your right foot out, maybe you even like to bring the right elbow down, or not even have a block or a proper tool, both forearms on the floor, go ahead and do that. As long as you feel like the pose is still holding some integrity, you're not being slung over to the left side of the mat, you're still able to keep your chest parallel to the floor, doesn't feel too awkward in the hip. Come into the depth that serves you. And then again, soften. You can't be completely yin in this. You've got to have some strength going on in your shoulders and arms, but not too much. You want to try and let go and soften wherever you can. You're probably feeling this more intensely in your right hip, around the right side of your pelvis. Try and breathe into that area to send it ease and softness. Let your head hang. That's a minute. Let's go back to downward facing dog again very briefly. Pick up your back knee, step the right foot back, come into a down dog for a moment. You could even, if you want, move your hips a little bit to the left and the right. Notice how your body feels now, in particular how your hips feel in comparison. Then step your left foot forward. Bring the left hand a little to the right first so you've got some space. Remember, you can use the block, put it under your left hand or your right hand, whatever feels better. I'm counting a minute now. Come into the depth, the intensity of the pose gradually. Take a good 10, 15, 20 seconds to ascertain what intensity you want to hold on this side. Remember, this side might feel a little different. Hang your head. I'm tucking my toes under because my foot feels very tight in this way, so I want to try and increase a little bit more flexibility in the back of the leg, the lower leg, the Achilles tendon and so on. But if you want to point your toes and bring the top of the foot to the floor, be my guest. I'm going to be quiet now.
Let your breathing be easy. Again, a short hold, only 1 minute. If your elbows are on the floor, bring your hands to the floor now. And again, a brief downward facing dog. Still working very much on the hips. Bring both of your knees down to the floor. We're going to do shoelace here. And having blocks for this pose is going to be very useful. If you know that in this pose, and I'm going to quickly demonstrate it to you, that having 2 blocks to sit on is better, it gives you more help and makes the pose much more doable, then place your block on top of your other block. If you know that 1 block is fine, go for that. If you know this pose well and you've been doing it for a while and you know that you don't need a block or maybe just a rolled up blanket, then do that. So, sitting on whatever you want to sit on, and that can just be the plain mat. Bring your left leg under, slightly point the foot here and press down. And then bring your right leg gently over. Keep the ankles strongly engaged to begin with so that you've got the setup. Point both of your feet. You want to stack your knees as best you can. 1 minute. From here, gaze down at the floor. Make sure both of your sitting bones are being propped up equally. You can bring your fingertips to the floor beside your hips and stay upright, or possibly come forward a little bit more, but with caution. Maybe come into more of a forward fold. If you are coming into a forward fold, push your hands down with some certainty and help carry your body weight. Gaze softly at the floor and try and keep your gaze still as you let your legs soften and melt. Breathe into your lower back here and all around that right hip. And again, I'll be quiet here about another 30 seconds. Soften your feet. 3, 2, 1. If you're in a forward fold, push your feet down, firm your abdominal muscles and come up. Everybody, bring your hands onto the floor behind you. Bring the soles of your feet to the floor and then bring your right leg under. Again, make sure that your left sitting bone is on the floor or on your prop. Slowly and carefully bring the left leg over. I like to pull my calf muscle up a little bit here as well. If you need to do that, feel free. Again, fingertips begin on the floor beside your hips. Stay upright like this. If this is already intense enough, be careful of the knee or possibly come forward a little bit more. Proceed with curiosity and caution. Again, just quiet here. Make sure that your gaze is soft, that your breath perhaps is a little deeper as you soften your entire body as best you can. And then from here, push your hands down, come all the way up, We're going to do one more forward fold and then a back bend. This next one is to lengthen the inner hips. So lean back, uncross your legs. Now, bolster time or sofa cushion stacking time. Wide-legged forward fold. So I'm going to stay sitting on my blanket. It's a little bit messed up. So if yours is, make sure that it's really nicely folded and that you're sitting right on the front corner, the front fold of your blanket or your towel. And then bring in up into your body your bolster or your blanket or sofa cushions. If you don't have a bolster, get one, or get someone to get you one for Christmas. It's a good present. I got this from Yoga Matters. It's full of, I think, buckwheat. It's very nice. So I've put this block here for my head. You don't need a lot of comfort. It's only a minute. Again, short yin. So hands behind you, lift up the front body. And as you exhale, drape yourself over your prop. You might be quite high here. This is fine. Make sure that you're resting the weight of your head. You don't have to carry it. And that you're feeling the backs of your legs and your inner thighs, getting a nice deep stretch. The lower back will also be lengthened here. Try and tip your pelvis forward. That's why we've got the blanket there to help that happen. And then rest your weight down. I've started that minute already. Make sure that your elbows are on the floor if they can be on the floor, or your hands are on the floor at least, so that you can relax your shoulders as best you can. Soften your feet. Soften all the way up the length of your legs, the back, the sides, the inner thighs. And again, I'll be quiet here as you breathe through and into the pose. Dragonfly pose. Okay, and then from here, remember it's just a minute for each side and each pose. Press your hands down, come all the way up, the back bend. Seal pose with an option to come into Sphinx instead, because seal pose is really quite intense. I'm going to put a blanket underneath my pelvis here, underneath the pubic bone, just for a little bit of softness. I recommend you do the same. So, lying down on your blanket, make sure that your feet are quite wide apart, wider apart than they are when you come into Cobra. So for the less intense back bend is when your elbows are on the floor and you're coming here into Sphinx, interlace your fingers and gaze forward. I'm going to start the timer now for 1 minute. You can stay there or come into seal pose, more intense. Bring your hands right to the edges of the mat. Turn your fingers out to the sides and straighten your arms. This is a very deep lower back bend. If you don't want to do this, please don't. Keep your elbows back on the floor. Gaze forward. Again, a soft gaze. Breathe into your lower back, which is getting a deep compression here, especially on the outer side of your back, the most deepest part of your lower back, the heaviest vertebrae, part of your spine that is facing up more towards the ceiling is getting particularly compressed here. And that is usually a good thing. If it doesn't feel good, then lower the intensity. You can even rest your head on the floor. You're still actually doing a back bend. Soften around your legs and around your pelvis as much as you can, so that those deep, deep tissues aren't being supported by your muscles.
in this very still hold. Deep flexibility work is going on. Now, if you're in seal, bring your elbows down to the floor slowly, carefully, one by one. And then everyone, make sure that your forehead is now on the floor, on your hands. I'm going to give you the option to stay like this and do Shavasana upside down. Or you can turn over now and come into Shavasana with your belly up, the more conventional way. Just 1 minute again. Do this. Give your body the time and the opportunity to come back to its normal, neutral, anatomical setting. Slightly lower your chin. Soften your entire body. Now please bend your knees, one leg at a time. Bring the soles of your feet to the floor and roll over onto your left side. Relax your head in your upper arm. Keep your right hand on the floor just in front of your face. Stay here, no hurry. Then push your right hand down to help yourself sit up. Sit cross-legged or sit kneeling, however you prefer. Sit tall. Close your eyes again and bring your hands into your heart. Lower your chin. Pause. Notice how you feel here. Release your hands and bring your palms down onto your legs. Press down. Lift your chin, open your eyes. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you for practicing yoga with me, for choosing my classes. And if you would like to have more influence on choices for what sequences and poses I teach, become a patron. And I'll also give you more support and more encouragement in our Facebook group and in our Patreon page as well, with live classes and lots of other goodies. So do consider that. It's just $3 a month. And I look forward to seeing you, or you at least watching this channel next week. Lots more classes to come. Take care. I hope you feel good. Keep doing yin yoga. It's a great practice. Take care.